Okay. All right. So let's give this one more quick try. Okay. All right. So I spent enough time mucking around with streams and preamble and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to cut to the chase here, and I'm going to talk about some solutions, because I think this is really kind of where well, this is where a lot of people kind of go, oh, well, it'd be nice, it'd be nice, it'd be nice, it'd be nice. But let's talk about some real things that we can do. Number one, let's go back to the thing that I was talking about with music and musicians and craftspeople and all that kind of thing who make things and are in some way adding to the community. So the first thing you do is you make it so that when these people come into contact with the police have another thing that they can do. And the short version is give them a fix-it ticket, as in, okay, so you have 3 business days to go to the city offices and get a permit. Make sure the music that you're going to play is not, or the performance you're going to do, whatever it may be, is not inappropriate for our streets. Make sure the goods that you're selling are not inappropriate, illegal, whatever, yada, 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 in some way. So do all of that. Then, in that process, sit them down with the community liaison officer. And I haven't quite talked about the community liaison officer, but let's just say that we have one, all right? Or the homeless liaison. And they say, look, this is what's here. This is what flies here. You can do this. You can do this. Be friendly with people. Get along with them. But if you're gonna, if you're gonna be a problem, remember that we don't really have a whole lot of room for that. We're just fine with you doing what you're doing. And this is as long as you are part of the social contract. And this is kind of Rousseau's whole social contract thing, where it's for lack of a better way of putting it, it's the give and the take. The society, we give up certain things. We give up, we don't poop in the streets and that kind of thing, in return for, theoretically society, giving us a shelter over our head, or at least at the very least not locking us up in some cases, So the thing is that with that being the case, we say, these are the things that are good. These are things that are not so good here. And make that initial contact. And now, who is this social liaison person, this homeless liaison person I'm talking about? Well, now, this is a social worker. Now, this goes into retasking some of the money that is going to the police right now. Now, this social worker, considering the scope of homelessness, really is probably somebody who should be employed by the county and be responsible for things throughout St. Johns County here. But they would be the person who, when there's somebody who, is not a threat, but, it's a homelessness situation, they go talk to them. And I'm not saying that this is one of those people who's always going to be handling with kid gloves. I'm not saying this is a person who represents the charities and the churches. I mean, they do on some level. That is part of what they represent. And I'm also not saying that they should just go in there alone. I mean, there are certain times where they're like, okay, you know what? I'm getting a feeling off this person where maybe I should have backup, and the police, they can stand, far enough away that they're not going to set things off, or, but they'll be there, where if it's a situation, they can make themselves useful. But by the police, by the men with guns or the people with guns, not being the people who are first making contact, then I think it improves the situation. So, and this person has a pretty big job. They're working with hopefully we can get a liaison officer for the St. Johns County Sheriff. We can get one for St. Augustine PD, St. Augustine Beach PD. We can get one for all the various private security forces that patrol the golf courses and Nocatee and all that kind of thing. And so that basically when there is an issue with somebody who's homeless in St. Johns County, that we can contact this person and they can come and with their skill, with their expertise, with their trained expertise as a social worker, deal with that person in a humane way that helps that person and hopefully the whole county. So let's go back to the whole thing about the busking. So let's make that legal. Let's make it so that you get caught selling, not something illegal, but you get caught, selling something on the street without a permit. Please say, do you have a permit? No. Okay. Well, here's, you take care of that. And one of the things that happens there is that think about the kind of people that you end up attracting in that situation. Okay. Now you have a situation where the homeless people have at least, if not positive relationship, a clear relationship with the authorities in the community, the homeless liaison officer, the social workers, the various folks working for the county and the city. Those are all people who they understand now, as long as they play by the rules, somebody's got their back. And now they're part of the social construct. Now they're part of the social contract. Now, I'm going to digress here for a minute, probably more than a minute. But I'm going to talk about a guy that I knew by the name of Randy. Oh, shoot, I don't remember his last name. Anyway, Randy was running for city council. And Randy was homeless. He was legitimately homeless. I know where he lived. He used to live in the back of a Toyota camper that was just parked on a side street, and he had access to the bathroom and all that inside the house of the place where he was parked in front of. And it was a pretty decent situation for being homeless, but it was definitely homeless. And he was a representative of the homeless community. I supported him being on city commission. He never made it to city commission, but I think it would have been very interesting if he had been. And the thing to understand about why that could happen is because the place where I came from had a community of homeless that it was a community of homeless people, not just a bunch of random people who, this group who lived out in the woods and that group who lived out in the woods. I mean, honestly, I don't even know what's going on out here in the woods of St. Johns County. There's times where I worry I'm going to run into the Hatfields and the McCoys, run into some or some kind of street battle or, backwoods battle between the, homeless people. I don't know, but I think that if we have a situation where people can really feel like they have a reason to police themselves, then you start seeing things that, like, I was really surprised, and it took me a minute to understand what I was seeing. And this was something that I saw back where I came from, and it was a flyer inside a phone booth. And it was such and such is in town and abuses women, yada, 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 something like that. And I've seen now that actually now transferred to Facebook. I actually saw that fairly recently here. And that was more of a more of a kind of general warning, and, and Facebook is not quite as effective when you're trying to contact the homeless community as a printed paper flyer in a bathroom or a phone booth might be. But this was like, so-and-so is in town, they are an abuser, they need to leave. And I realized what that is that's the community policing itself. And that's what you want. I mean, it may not be ideal. That person may not be, as bad of a person as that flyer says, but here's what you have is you have a community that is trying to take care of their own. And when they do that, well, guess what this is all about? Defund the police. You won't need them as much. They won't need to be there. They won't need to be dealing with all of these just immediate band-aid situations, because now you've created a community that, wants to take care of their own one way or the other. And that when something goes wrong, they're not going to hide it as much if they know that they can actually have, maybe not the police, but a community liaison officer come in and go, oh my God, what has happened here? And, understand what issues need to be dealt with. I mean, let's be honest, there can be ugly things that can happen that never get reported and never get dealt with because the homeless people themselves are never going to call the police. But if they're invested in the community, and if they do, well, then maybe they can police themselves, but also when they can't, maybe they can call in the police in a way and they can be safer. And that, again, leads to the whole thing. It's a big snowball. It all comes together in one, hopefully, happy society way, right? I mean, it's never going to be perfect. There are going to be problems. But what I'm talking about is I'm talking about creating a self-sustaining equilibrium. I think that if you can do that, then you've got a situation where people are really able to make a difference in their own lives. Because right now, so much of being homeless is just dealing with the immediacy of it. I mean, you guys probably know it's expensive to be poor. I mean, that's just being poor. Imagine how expensive it is when you've got nothing. All right. So, enough about that. Enough happiness and joy and positivity. Because really, that's what this is. This is proposing, a very positive response to things. We don't have to respond to this whole situation in a negative way. What do I mean by this whole situation? Okay. So, we didn't get our unemployment checks. I mean, not me personally, but this country. I can apply for one more week's worth of unemployment checks. I'll get that. So can most people at this point here in Florida. But after that, there's not that extra $600. You might be able to get something from the state, but it really depends. I forget, Florida really does have its limits, and we're getting pretty close to that Florida limit already on how much they pay out as the state. As I understand it, the $1,200 stimulus that everyone was hoping for did not pass either. That the Senate has gone home, that there is no stimulus, there is nothing coming, at least as of this moment. I'm okay with that. I mean, I can deal with that. I'm all right with that. But it's going to be painful. There's a lot of people who could end up homeless. So, start with number one. Let's band together. That's what the title of this is. Let's really band together. So first of all, if you don't know me well, if you're not one of the people who would personally band together with me, get a hold of me. Talk to me. There are a lot of resources and a lot of ways that I know about to kind of help get funding in certain things like this. Now, some of this is going to work for me, some of it is not, but it's a start. Number 2, those of you who do know me, even if you just know me peripherally, know me a little bit, so this is what we're looking for, personally. There's about 2 1/3 acres, a little over that, out in that direction. Right over there. If the day comes, the piece of land that I'm renting right now, I do not own this land, I'm renting it. But if the day comes, I believe that we could buy this. I believe that we could buy it inexpensively. About $12,000. At that point in time, there are a lot of options. Now, I'm going to say this. If we're at a point where, for lack of a better way of putting it, everything has gone to hell. Everyone's homeless. There's barely any jobs. It's looking really bad. Then we're going to do it nice. And it's not going to be tense, but we're going to set up a camp back there. That's really only if the revolution ends up or it's time for the revolution. What I mean by time for the revolution, I mean, think about this. Think about this right now, okay? So if we are in a situation as it stands where, well, guess what? Over 20 million people could end up homeless within the next few weeks, within the next 6 to 8 weeks, within the next week to 8 weeks. Well, if you're homeless and you're going to camp, well, let's go camp on the doorstep of the courthouse. Let's go camp in the park. Let's go set up a public protest encampment so that we're not just doing nothing, so that we're doing something. Let's go protest this, because it's about damn time. Now, there's a lot of things to protest in this country. It's very well and good that we should be protesting Black Lives Matter, and we should continue to do so. Do not forget what started a lot of this year. Also, let's not forget that there's other things that we can ask for. One of those things I was just talking about. In the process of talking about defunding the police, which is a very important thing, let's talk about how we can take that money and use it better for the better of our community. Not just the better of the homeless people, but for the better of the community. Let's be really honest, okay? This proposal, if we get a lack of a better way of putting it, people who are more invested in the community, who care more about the community, then we're going to do better. So that's one. You can protest for that. But if we're protesting because of homelessness as well, I mean, guess what? You evict 20 million people, we're all in the same bag. We're all in the same boat. We're all there. So, yeah. Let's get ready to camp out on the courthouse steps if it reaches that point. Now, if it doesn't, got another plan. Because let's be honest, it's bad. It's bad. You know, it's bad right now. It's not horrible. It's bad. But crisis can be opportunity. So here's the opportunity. Let's make that into a queer, safe space, luxury, tiny home community. Now, mind you, when I say luxury, I don't mean expensive. I just mean we're going to build them good. So, who's invited? Well, queer. If you're LGBTQ plus, it's you. That's not blanket. That's not the only requirement. A certain amount of preference will be given to people who are in spaces where they are in danger, where they need a space, where they've got a, yeah. That said, not looking for people who would be temporary or short term. And I think for me personally, a very important thing would be that it be people who are creative and crafty. Perhaps some writers, people who do media, that kind of thing. But I'm also interested in people who create things with their hands. I'm personally really big into that. So, yeah, you're correct, Celeste. Basically, primarily marginalized people would be one of the biggest ones that we'd be watching out for. And of course, yeah, a good point. Not just LGBTQ plus, also certain situations where, in particular, and this is another thing that I want to keep in mind here, is that this is a spot that is already part of a community. There's a neighborhood here. I mean, it's not a very tightly packed neighborhood, but it is a neighborhood, and people have lived here for a good period of time. And I, at least right now, can think of one woman who is a little bit elderly. And perhaps if she is capable of taking care of herself, having a space, there are things like that, or having family members who would have that space if that's what they need. Because, well, we can't just come in here and pretend that this is a little island. So, yeah. But ideally, what we want out there is a group of, I'm thinking, 2 or 3 groupings of people, or houses, tiny houses, probably about 6 houses, 5 to 6 houses per grouping, each one having a common spaces for each one of those small groupings. And really, ideally, I want to do it so that it's set up. Oh, lovely breeze. Okay. So that it's set up incongruent, so that it's going along with the nature that we have here. There's a bit of wetlands here. That's not really a huge concern, but I do think it's something that working together with what we have here leaves a lot of possibilities. Now, that's really just kind of where I'm at right now with this particular property. I'm actually looking at other properties. I have a good friend of mine who is taking a look at a number of properties and spaces, and is kind of helping me kind of navigate a lot of this legally. Quite good to have somebody who has that level of expertise that he does. So I'm very glad to have that. And if you know who you are, I'm not going to call you out by name, but I want to say thank you very much. So that said, let me just leave you here, because I was really only planning on being here for a little while. And unless somebody besides Celeste wants to pop up and chat and say something, then I'm going to wrap this up for now. And I want to leave you with, I'm actually going to go ahead and click away here, and I'm going to find a link, and I hate to do it. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to put up a link in the chat for a book. All right. There we go. Oh, the rain's coming. Oh, the rain has started. Oh, it's coming down hard. Oh, wow, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm going to have to take care of that here in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to have to send a link for one that is out of stock, but I'm going to put this up real briefly. And if you do a look, I think you can actually find this. I think you can actually find this on archive.org. But that's a book, Andrew Henry's Meadow. I read it many a time as a child. And while it was just little places for kids, tree houses, everybody had their own custom home, little digging in the earth place for the kid who liked worms and squirrels and things like that. Kid could live in the burrow with his bunnies. It'd be nice to have something like that here. All right, so I need to go take care of the fact that there's a heavy rainstorm coming, and y'all stay safe. Don't get too wet. I think I'm about to.